Hello and welcome everybody to this masterclass on navigating your desire, your libido when living alongside either chronic or episodic pain and or illness. My name is Kiki Maree. I'm a sexologist. I have been working in the field of sexuality now for around 10 years. And I've also had a school for around 5 years where I teach people to become somatic sex coaches or therapeutic yoni massage practitioners. Thank you for showing up for yourself and or your partner, because it is a really tricky journey to go from, living with pain or in a pain episode or flare up to then having expectations on ourselves from society, from a partner, to be a very sexual person, having to navigate other physiological, emotional, psychological problems that come with dis-ease, and particularly with pain, is really can be really confusing, really confronting, and we can also feel just very lost. This topic is extremely near and dear to my heart. I have lived with a very complex neurological disorder for my entire life. And one of the symptoms of that neurological disorder is intense, severe pain. And my condition worsened from my mid-20s onwards, where the pain, intensity of pain and frequency of flare-ups worsened. And so I've also been a very sexually alive person for as long as I can remember. And so navigating these different aspects of myself, these different identities, has definitely been a journey that informs my work and what I'm sharing with you today, along with my own personal research into navigating pain and illness in relationship and in our sexuality. So I'm going to share with you some high-level information today to hopefully give you some insight into how to better show up for yourself and your self-advocacy in your pleasure, or how to do that for your partner. And as always, it starts with communication. And when we are communicating, we want to communicate from a very well-informed place. So I'm going to lump together here for our first topic, communication, education. So becoming really educated, both you and your partner, on what the disorder is, or the pain or the disease, whatever is happening, actually is, what's happening in your body during these times, what that will look like, and what it actually means, and really finding credible sources for your education. And just as an example for myself, when I'm having a flare up, what can happen when my system sort of shuts down, or the information that is given to me that I need to drink water doesn't function anymore, and my partner is aware of this, so they know that they need to, they can help me by making sure I'm drinking water during a flare-up. So both of us having an in-depth understanding of what's happening in my body, especially with an invisible illness, is incredibly important to have a good understanding and to create awareness and empathy. And what happens when empathy and awareness and compassion are cultivated, the shame and blame can lessen, both from a partner towards us as the person living with the illness or pain, but also towards ourselves, that the pressure that we can put on ourselves, or expectations to be a sexually alive and awake person at a drop of a hat, when that just isn't the case for many people, but particularly when living with a chronic illness or disorder. So particularly when it's an invisible illness, if someone could see what is happening on the outside for people living with an invisible illness, then there would already be that compassion and care. If your body was black and blue, everyone that came into your presence would be like making sure they're caring for you. But when it's invisible, we're actually fighting against so much stigma around illness in women and pain in women and vulva habits, particularly when there is the stereotype of women saying, "Oh no, I can't tonight, honey, I've got a headache," or women not being believed by doctors about their pain. So we're fighting against that when it's an invisible illness. So the more that people can understand about their own illness and about their partner's illness, the more we're going to be able to feel seen and heard. And then I'm going to take that a step further in communication, understanding, building empathy and compassion. And that is particularly if you're living with a pain condition in your pelvis. So vulvodynia, vaginismus, pelvic inflammatory disease, endometriosis, PCOS, anything where there's pain in the region that you're expected to have sex. If your partner is a male and they've never received anything, been penetrated by anything internally, I highly recommend for them to go to that level of understanding of seeing what is needed to soften, to open, to relax, to be penetrated, and then gain a very embodied experience and understanding of what it means to be penetrated and what it means when there's pain involved, because sometimes it is just such an abstract idea for some people where they just can't quite grasp. This is a really awesome way to show up for a partner, to be like, oh, okay, this is what is needed. It's actually an awesome tool for anybody, because we all need to be soft and relaxed and open for the best type of penetration. So I recommend this to anybody that is being penetrated or penetrating, to explore this, but particularly when there is that need for softness. The next thing that I'm going to highlight is where we take penetration off the table, exploring touch without an expectation, different types of touch, different parts of the body, building intimacy and building sensations versus performance versus a goal of orgasm or intercourse, which can really help to reduce pressure of having to have intercourse or of any kind of touch to lead somewhere. And when we take off this pressure, when we take off this expectation, we can soften and open up so much more and receive more pleasure in. And this can be so incredibly, can create so much intimacy and relief, which is really beautiful, because there's so much pleasure that can be had through exploration and curiosity with one another's bodies. Then again, I'm just going to stay on the track of pelvic pain. I'm going to go into other different types of pain and illness after this, probably one more point. Outer course is delicious, as many of us experienced before doing the big penetrative sex experience. I think a lot of the time we think just because we have a vagina and a hole to be penetrated, and we're taught that that's what sex equals, versus sex being an umbrella term for all of the yummy things we can do together, then we can put this expectation on ourselves that we should be having penetrative sex, and that's what counts. Whereas pleasure is really the true goal in sex. So exploring what different yummy things, there are so many things that you can explore, as well as tools for male-bodied people that are just out of this world delicious. Getting explorative and creative with getting yummy together, and it not having to be something that is bringing on fear and anxiety of penetration, of tolerating, of testing, of going bit by bit just to see, and instead seeing what else is possible on your journey of, if you're wanting to work towards pain-free penetration, then, but not missing out in the meantime, then there's so much that is on offer. I think we're going to leave it there for the pelvic pain. We've covered understanding, education and communication to understand what is actually happening for our partner. I'm going to go into another sort of, sub-segment of communication, which is checking in with our partner to see where each other are at and how to cultivate intimacy with one another in a way that feels like there is no pressure, and we're not pushing against anyone's boundaries, or we're not feeling guilty for reaching out for intimacy with a partner that experiences pain or illness, and in whatever form that might take. So one of the methods that I've come up with is to do either a number check-in or a color check-in. And a number check-in could be, hey babe, how are you feeling? 1 to 10. Let's just use pain, for example. So you could say, hey, I'm at about a 0 actually. I'm feeling quite good in my body. I'm open for this kind of connection or intimacy. Or it might be, I'm at about a 2. I'm probably open for this kind of connection or intimacy. Or I'm at about a 7, an 8. I could probably only do this for connection and intimacy. or I just don't have it in me for any connection or intimacy right now, but let's check back in at whatever time. Or if you want to use a color instead, it could be, yeah, I'm at about a yellow, I'm not feeling amazing, but not too bad. A green, yes, I'm feeling amazing. Orange, like, yeah, I'm gonna check out. Red, I need to lay down. I need to, do whatever it is I need to do to look after myself. Can you grab me a heat pad? Can you grab me an ice pack? And so this can really help to take out the guessing for the partner, because there can be a lot of guilt or shame around initiating with a lover that is going through whatever illness, health issue that they're going through. And so the guesswork can be really tricky. So the number or the color system can be really helpful. While we are on the topic of the red zone, the orange zone, the 7 to 10 zone, I think it's really important that just because a partner is experiencing this, because this might be happening for quite some time, that we remember that our own pleasure, our own sexual satisfaction, which is our right to, our sexual health, sexual satisfaction, it can still remain at the forefront. It just doesn't mean that it's a shared experience in those times. So taking responsibility for self-pleasure, taking responsibility for filling our own cup and not putting that expectation on our partner, but then not abandoning ourselves in the process. I know for some couples, they can see self-pleasure as a betrayal or a sign of inadequacy or like failure, but it really isn't. It's actually really important to stay connected to our own bodies and to check in with our own bodies and allow ourselves the space to be in a very non-pressure state of pleasure. It's something that we can only give ourselves. We can't really experience what we can experience on our own with a partner. It changes, and it's a beautiful part of our pleasure toolkit and experience and our sex life. And so I really recommend people who are living with partners that are experiencing health issues to not neglect yourself in the process. And then for those of you who are the one living with chronic health issues, the same is true for you, finding ways that you can still access pleasure and supportive experiences for your body that might look very different to what they used to or what it does in movies or in porn, but finding things that bring you pleasure. For example, using a vibrator versus the hands. That's something that I definitely have had to do, and many of my clients have to do that live with chronic pain and illness. There's so much fatigue or just a lack of ability. And so bringing in the different pleasure tools, and maybe it's a sexual or erotic pleasure tool. Maybe there's like a massage gun that you're using on your body, and you might end up also self-pleasuring because you're feeling more relaxed and more open. But I think that seeking out micro pleasures for those of us living with chronic pain is incredibly important, because our body is surviving through so much that it's necessary to seek out those moments when we can feel softened and relaxed, even when we're in pain. For example, getting in the shower while in a flare-up, while in a pain flare-up, and feeling the warmth on your skin and trying to pay attention to that can help soothe us. Fear actually feeds neuroplastic pain, and neuroplastic pain is just as real as structural pain. And so taking ourselves out of states of fear and into states of softness and as relaxed as possible and mindful in our bodies as possible is really important to balance out that extreme sensation that we feel with pain. And a lot of flexibility is needed for both partners when it comes to sex and desire and living with chronic pain, as well as an understanding of our sexual inhibitory system, our brakes, the things that are stopping us from desiring sex. Of course, pain and illness is going to play a major role in this, and we're going to have we are likely going to have quite sensitive breaks because of this. And not only, so we have a biopsychosocial model when it comes to our inhibitions around sex or the things that are turning us off or our breaks. We have biologically, physiologically, things that are happening in our body that are stopping us. So if we're in pain, then we're definitely not going to, or oftentimes, I'm going to say definitely not, because sometimes I do still have a desire for sex when I'm in some types of pain. Definitely seen that in others as well. And sometimes it eases pain. And then we have our psychological breaks, part of the biopsychosocial model. So psychologically, there might be different things going on that are putting us, that are making sort of a resistance or our breaks more sensitive, which are things like, oh my God, I feel the depression that can come from going into a flare-up, or the anxiety that can be coming of what that's going to look like, what it's going to turn into, and any kind of obsessive thoughts that might be coming up because of it, getting us out of our pleasure, out of our body, into our head. There might be resentment there towards our partner for just always feeling healthy and fine. Then, there are so many, and that's sort of going more into our next social aspect, the relational, interpersonal aspect. So yeah, there can be many different things that are happening psychologically that come along with our physical illness and pain. And then we have the social aspect of the biopsychosocial model, the interpersonal relational, where there might be some tension, conflict, resentment, unspoken truths, miscommunications, misunderstandings, things that haven't been worked out with our partner that can inhibit, and that can also be related to our pain. There might be like a lack of understanding on their end, or a lack of empathy, support, what have you. So there can be many different things interplaying around our illness or pain that are stopping us from wanting to have sex. And I really want to push here that sexuality is incredibly fluid in the way that it shows up in our lives, and it changes throughout our life. We go through different periods, and it's really important to not compare our sex now to what it was like, because we need to see what is showing up for us now. That's what sex is. It's what is present and alive for us now, and what are we needing right now. And so what I want to drive home here is that we go through these different phases. There might be phases where we are learning and getting educated in sex, either through trial and error, or reading or watching this course, and therefore we might be taking pause and reflecting and introspecting on, oh wow, I didn't know that was possible, I didn't know I liked that, I didn't know I wanted that, I want to know more about that. Hang on a second, let me just sort of take pause and reassess. I know for a lot of people, when they learn boundaries and consent, they're like, whoa, okay, hold up, I've never done that before, I need to take a pause because I want to do things differently. Pause is really normal. A healing phase is also really normal. There will be times where we are healing and sex is not at the forefront. Sex desire for sex oftentimes comes from a space of feeling safe, relaxed, open, and alive and happy. And sometimes when we're going through a period of healing, whether it's healing from an intense flare-up, healing from a breakup, healing from grief, although grief sometimes is an access into desire, which is an interesting, but we're just gonna go here stay here with the healing period. There are times in our life where sex just isn't on the table, and we can feel quite asexual, and that is totally normal. Then there'll be other periods of our life where, and it can surprise people when this can happen. Sometimes it can happen in our midlife or around menopause, where it's like, oh my God, I'm wanting it, I'm having sex, I'm getting adventurous, I'm getting curious, I'm doing all of these things. And then other times we can go through like really transcendental experiences in sex where it's like, whoa, like I am at one with the universe, I'm at one with everybody around me, and I feel so alive. And every single person has a different interplay with these different phases of their sex life. So I want to take that pressure off of like, why don't I want to have sex? Why does my sex look like this now? Why does it look like that now? It's normal, it's fluid, it changes, and it shows us what we're needing. Our sex, our desire, our turn on, our turn off is letting us know where we are needing to give more attention, where we are needing to love ourselves more. Okay, this is probably enough for now. I really hope that it has given you a little bit of an insight into how to navigate sex and pleasure and desire and arousal while living alongside a chronic illness or pain or episodic pain disorder. I really hope that you can be gentle with yourself and create the space for yourself that is needed. That is unfair, that you have to do that, but unfortunately for many of us, we do need to create space for our own pleasure and advocate for our own pleasure and find what that looks like uniquely for us as individuals living with pain and or illness. And if we do make it a priority, even if it's just a small amount of pleasure that we advocate for each day, a foot massage, a slow shower, it is only going to help us. It is only going to reduce stress and anxiety that we are having to live with around our condition, and add to the beneficial hormones, neurotransmitters, neurochemicals that come through feeling pleasure. And you do have it right, and you deserve access to that, and you deserve, if you're in a partnership, relationship, you deserve to have a partner who understands that and is advocating for you and is supporting and loving you through it. Okay, much love to you all. Bye bye.